and thank you for joining us for this episode of That Solo Life, the podcast for PR pros and marketers who work for themselves. People like me, Michelle Kane with VoiceMatters, and my wonderful co-host, Karen Swim of Solo PR Pro. Hey, Karen, here we are.
Hi, Michelle. We are here, and I'm so glad. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Can't complain. Can you believe we're in the 5th month of the year already? Yikes. I guess it's a good thing it's going fast.
It's the slowest, fastest year ever.
That's not the truth. Oh my gosh. Well, we've got a fun topic to dig in on today. The USC Annenberg, their School for Communication and Journalism, has their global communication report for 2025. And there's some really interesting things going on in this. And I don't know, some things that I nod my head and go, yeah, okay. But, as Gen Z becomes more of a population in the workforce, it is interesting to see what they're thinking about our world.
It is. I think the multi-generational workforce is so fascinating, and it, obviously it affects those of us who don't work in traditional jobs but are self-employed, because we also have to interact with all of these generations, and everyone comes from a different perspective. And so learning what's important to them and how they perceive work and the future of work is really interesting.
Yeah. In fact, it was interesting. One of the things that came out of this was that divide about workplace flexibility. I mean, we know that the kids, and rightfully so, are looking for more flexibility, and they don't care if it means they get paid a little less, although these days it's not so good. But yeah, they said like nearly half of Gen Z would rather have more flexibility, even if that impacted the level of the pay. And I have to say, that's probably a far healthier way to live if you can do it.
I agree.
The hamster trail we've been on.
I agree. And I know that older generations sometimes attack the work ethic of Gen Z and see them as not having the commitment to hard work. But I think it's important for us to take a step back and to realize that in previous generations, hard work was not just a choice, it was a necessity. Things were very different. And so we have to look at things in context. So I think that this is so interesting, though, that they pride that balance so much that the money thing is not a factor for them. And that's a really interesting insight.
Yeah, it's so true what you say. And I think, me being Gen X, you had those elders around you of no, work. Because, in our day, if we didn't have shoes kind of thing. And that was real for them. So that was, I know for myself, I'm trying to unlearn it a little bit and realize, oh, wait. And I don't think that means for Gen Z, I don't think that means for them that they're showing up halfway when they do show up. I mean, I know I've muttered the whole notion of everyone needs to go to an office boot camp to know what's what. But I think those that are committed to their work and their profession, they will show up for it. But they'll also know I'm not going to die for this. And in a way, that in and of itself is a little luxurious, but it's also refreshing.
I agree. And, it's funny that you use that word luxurious, because I think that it's also that they have grown up in this era where their reality is, look, housing prices are, out of our reach. There's so many things that our parents, really value that we just can't afford. And so we're going to make the most of our life on a daily basis rather than waiting for that pot of gold at the end of retirement. And I honestly, I do completely agree with that perspective. Let's all live life now and enjoy it and enjoy it fully and not put everything on hold until we're done working.
I agree because none of that is guaranteed.
For sure.
Just no way. Another similar outcome of this was also, and I don't want to make this about the Gen Zers per se, but, they're far more into the hybrid workplace, which I know many of, let's face it, solos, we work alone. So I think we were among those least affected by the pandemic because we've already been doing it. But, I think that definitely was a factor in helping people in PR realize, yeah, you know what? I can do this pretty much literally from anywhere. Get me a strong Wi-Fi signal and a device, and I'm off. And as we see, there's been a lot of pushback and corporations wanting people back in the office. I was having a conversation with a colleague recently whose business, was saying, come back in the office. I said, oh, yeah, so you can not spend the $20 for lunch that you normally wouldn't spend because you brought your lunch. I mean, I understand it, but.
Yeah, but it's interesting that they say hybrid. So not fully remote, but hybrid.
Right.
And
right.
I think that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
As much as this is an unpopular opinion, because one of the other things that came out of this survey is the impact of AI on the next generation. And it talked about really, because Gen Z is very, 25% of them are concerned that, AI is going to reduce their entry level job opportunities. That's true.
Yeah.
The use of AI also requires different skill sets. But one thing that I think that how this ties together is that Gen Z still needs mentorship. And it's a lot easier to do that mentoring in person. So when you have hybrid where you are in the office with different personality types, with different generations, you have an opportunity to learn from others, and to develop those soft skill sets. You learn how to communicate across the divide. You learn all of those social cues that you do not get via a Zoom or a Teams meeting. So
yeah,
I honestly am for hybrid. I would never want to be in an office 5 days a week, but in some industries, I understand why employers are like, listen, we are better when we are in the office working together, collaborating as a team.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree because, as much as I love to just, be head down and get it done, you don't realize how much you miss the in-person interaction until you get back around it.
Yeah.
And like you say, I'm not saying I'd want it every day, but it is refreshing. And it's not even something that's planned as far as, we are going to have this meeting and plan this collaboration. No, it just happens as you riff off each other. And some of those things can only happen in person. And like you're saying, even the social cues, because my goodness, look at the way our society is going. They're saying Gen Z kids, they don't go out, they don't drink as much alcohol, they'd rather hole up, and I'm not downing them. I'm just like, whoa. I even think, my lovely little Gen X world of, would there be a dancing on air today? Because no, do these kids go out to dance? And you're thinking, oh my gosh.
It's true. But, they came of age during a more isolated time. And we have to remember that even prior to the pandemic, we had really started to move away from community and those huge social circles. So, I do think that the office could be a solution to solving some of the problems of society today, because you learn to be with people by being with people, and you learn things from other people, and good, bad, and ugly. It's wonderful as a solo that we mostly get to choose clients that we really like. But even we have to deal with difficult personalities. That comes from dealing with difficult personalities and not shying away from it, and not able to run, but, having to be planted because this is your job and this is your work, and learning how to navigate those situations. And poor Gen Z, I do feel that they're getting the short end of the stick on mentoring in general.
Yes, agree. Simply because, if you're not around it or you don't have access to a pathway to it, that's where I am grateful. I'll give a shout out to my Philly PR Association. Yay, PPRA. They recently devised a mentorship program, and reaching out to local students. And I have to say too, the way technology has taken leaps since I was in college, oh my goodness, the things that the students get to do now is so much more formidable. And I think that helps them get a leg up as well, and hopefully carry them into that next step of trying to seek out mentorship, even if it's not apparent to them, if that makes sense.
I agree. And, there's reverse mentorship, right?
Oh,
There
yeah.
are certainly things that we gain from the younger generation as well. So,
Yeah.
having us all together in office is not a bad thing. It really is interesting, though, that the differences in the generations by the study of how what we think about ourselves. So, it says that each generation thinks that they're the most informed on political, social, and current events. And that's so fascinating to me because I think, older generations, we sometimes say things and Gen Z is like, what are you even talking about right now? They don't get our historical references.
True.
But, and some of our historical references really are relevant to current political, social, and current events.
Right.
And so we feel like we have richer context, but they don't even know that context. They just know what's happening now, but they think that they're more informed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, didn't we? We were saving the world at that age too. We have all the answers. Come on now.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they don't know all the things that we know and have not experienced all of those things yet, because there will come a time in their life when they'll get to be where we are, but let them enjoy some of their lack of knowledge in areas. I'm here for it.
You mean it's not normal that we watched the Challenger explode in study hall and just went right back to class?
It is not. It is not.
We're just built different.
We are built different, but they
have no trauma. We're fine
too. Like, I can't imagine having grown up in a school environment where we were doing shooter drills. That's horrifying to me.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine. I can't imagine even our darkest of humors. The closest we came in my high school was there was a bomb threat. So they evacuated the building. They evacuated our brick building, having us merely stand across the street in the parking lot. And I even remember turning to a classmate and saying, so if this thing blows, you can't tell me the bricks aren't going to come flying.
Of course you did.
I'm like, are we far enough away? Are we for real right now? And did I move? No, of course I stood there. I'm like, all right, whatever. Oh, yes. What can I say?
Why does this not surprise me, Michelle?
Sorry, insight into my work.
I mean, and as always, this focus on, obviously this is from the School of Communication. So it's global communications. But, I think a good point to end our talk on this study is, one thing that came through, and this is us, this is our profession. 74% of PR professionals maintain a positive outlook on the industry's future.
Isn't that amazing?
That brings me such joy in the midst of everything that we're dealing with in communications, in the media landscape, in the world. We are, God bless us, just a bunch of optimists who, have to look at the what if scenarios on a regular basis, but we are optimistic. And I love that.
Yeah, we are the can-do profession. And I say that without any irony. I mean, I hope I hope you're out there nodding your heads, right? Because if there are any professions out there where you're presented with a challenge and you just say, all right, okay, how am I going to power through this? We will make this work because it is going to happen. So I did love that. That really did give me a boost to read that despite all of the chaos around us, we still have optimism despite whatever AI brings, despite the disparity. As a profession, we still have a bright outlook on things. Realistic, of course, but a bright outlook. I think that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And of course, we will have a link to where you can download the full report for yourself in the show notes, as well as links to resources and information about Solo PR Pro and where to find us. So please check those out.
Yes.
We do show notes for every episode, sometimes short, sometimes long, but always with just the information that you need.
And if there's ever something you'd like us to tackle on this podcast, please let us know. Hit us up at soloprpro.com. And until next time, thanks for listening to That Solo Life.